Well, hi friends, hi Acadiana, and welcome to Let's Talk Tropics. It is finally Friday, it's June the 7th, and it is a pretty day across Acadiana with temperatures running around 91 degrees right now here in Lafayette, expecting that high temperature to top out right around 94 with a heat index at about 100 degrees. So hopefully you've had a great week so far, and I'm excited for everyone to have a nice weekend. We'll go through the tropics here real quick. There's still a lot of rumblings on social media when it comes to any tropical development. The GFS still trying to develop something out there, so we'll go through all of the different models here coming up in just a little bit. But let's go ahead and look outside real quick. As I said, a beautiful day across the region. The roadways are dry, and if you've got some travel plans this weekend in the local area, I think you will be just fine. No weather worries this time around, and I'm excited to take an entire weekend off without having to break in for any severe weather, and hopefully we won't have to break in for any tropical weather, and I really don't think that's going to happen at all. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's get into the big satellite picture first of all, and again, we are looking at quite a bit of a few tropical waves that are moving across the Atlantic. We've got one right just kind of coming onto the screen. You got another one right here. You've also got another tropical wave. It's kind of about halfway across the Caribbean Sea as well. And then we've got kind of a broad area of low pressure here over the western part of the Caribbean Sea. And that is what we're going to be talking about a little bit later on. In the eastern part of the Atlantic, we've got a pretty good tropical wave out there as well off the African coast, but not too concerned about that right now. So let's get into the Caribbean, and there have been a number of features out here over the last couple of days, more of an upper trough that we've got here north of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola. And it's actually part of a larger system that extends out here into the middle part of the Atlantic where we've got a low pressure area. And then we've just kind of got a broad area of low pressure that's out here over the western part of the Caribbean right now. And the satellite imagery for the Central American region showing some rains that are finally starting to come in. These folks have been plagued by drought for most of the spring, and we've had fires going on over parts of Central America and into portions of Mexico. And some of that smoke has made its way over parts of the Gulf of Mexico as well. But we're finally, with some rain, maybe we'll start to get rid of some of these smoky areas here that have been lifting their way up toward the northern Gulf Coast. But blocking it right now, got a bit of a front that's out here at this hour. That's allowed for some slightly drier conditions here in the Acadiana region. So the tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center not indicating any tropical activity to develop over the next 7 days. But a lot of folks have been talking on social media, looking at the different models, and you know, some of this is pretty good that you all are sharing these things, because it gives me the notion that all of you are getting ready for hurricane season and hopefully will be prepared. Sometimes a few folks are picking out the worst case scenario and only putting that particular version out there. So we've had a couple of those happen over the last couple of days. So let's just review, and this map right here is actually looking at midnight into Saturday night, Sunday morning of next weekend, so the Father's Day weekend. So we're looking at June 15th and June 16th, and this is the 12Z model GFS that we showed you yesterday. It was the newest model when we did Acadiana Weather Today's Let's Talk Tropics at noon yesterday, and it was indicating a low pressure area there over the central part of the Gulf of Mexico, and kind of a area that's a little concerning for the Acadiana region. But then the following model that ran, let's say, mid part of the day yesterday, not showing a low pressure area. And then the following one that came in late last night had the low back there again, kind of in the same place, but maybe a little bit farther to the east. And then the model that we're running here this morning is also still seeing a bit of a low pressure area over the eastern part of the Gulf of Mexico. Again, each one of these models that I'm looking at is midnight, June 15th going into the 16th. So Saturday night going into Sunday morning at midnight. This is the model that we call the precipitable water model, and basically it's indicating how much moisture is in there and where it's going, and you got a pretty good flow of moisture that would be coming in around the east side of that low. And again, this was the run that happened earlier this morning. Now let's look at today's. This is the one that just finished a little while ago. And even though there does seem to be a little bit of a trough of low pressure out here in the western part of the Gulf of Mexico, it does seem to be shying away from anything that's really significant. Again, we're talking about Sunday or Saturday night into Sunday morning next weekend, Father's Day weekend. So this is a good 7 days out. Models, once you get within 7 days, might have a little bit of credibility to them, but beyond 7 days, it's really kind of la-la land. But I did want to point out that the Euro model, even though it isn't really suggesting any kind of a closed low pressure area and really hasn't tried to buy on, there does seem like there's a little bit of a low pressure area here that is trying to form. You can see the tropical moisture that would be pulled up to the north from Central America and even out of the Pacific, and maybe even a low pressure area developing on the west side of Central America. It is hurricane season in the Pacific as well, and you sometimes will get those to develop there in that's called the Gulf of Tehuantepec, by the way, and it would drift westward out into the open waters of the Pacific. So the Euro starting to buy in a little bit. The GFS has been a lot stronger with development, but the GFS over the past 24 hours seems to be backing off somewhat. And here are a couple of reasons. Let's look at the shear map, and wind shear is not a developing system's friend. So there's a lot of shear that's going to be out here in the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico. This is currently right now. So we've got that little trough of low pressure that's down here, and you got the number of tropical waves that are kind of working their way west. But if they try to move their way in this direction in the next couple of days, they're going to be running into that shear. So that would not be good for any kind of development. But let's fast forward again out to that Saturday night, early Sunday morning time frame next weekend. And remember, the models were indicating maybe some kind of a weak low pressure area to develop, and it would also be in an area of less wind shear. So that could be in its favor, but as I said, looking out beyond 7 days can sometimes be in la-la land. And looking at the models, this area of lower wind shear is forecast to kind of move off toward the west. So if anything were to try to develop, it may be able to sustain itself over the western part of the Gulf of Mexico. Now, a couple of things that we do or that we're concerned about, though, anytime the models are trying to develop a tropical system in this particular area right here, the water temperatures are quite extreme. They're 28, 29, 30 degrees Celsius. So you're going anywhere between 82 and 86 degrees, and there's some waters there south of Cuba that are even warmer. And as you can see in the Gulf of Mexico, everywhere should be able to sustain tropical development. That magic number is 27, and anything higher than that is what we're looking at when it comes to the ability for tropical systems to maintain their strength, or at least have the fuel that they need to continue to grow. Tropical cyclone heat potential is also another thing that we get a little concerned with, especially if we're going to try to see something try to develop in this area. So for those of you who don't know what this graphic is about, tropical cyclone heat potential not only measures 80-degree water at the surface, at the top of the water, but how deep that 80-degree water goes. So if anything tries to develop in this area or this area, as it churns up some of the waters from below, normally it would try to turn up something colder, and that would be inhibiting the system from developing. But because the water out here is so incredibly warm and it's so incredibly deep where this water goes, that any tropical system can just slosh things around, and you're still going to have plenty of warm water reaching the surface. So that is something that we are a little bit more concerned about, especially this year where the forecasts are showing above normal activity. We're going into a La Nina period. We've got high tropical cyclone heat potential. We've got Atlantic waters that are at record levels right now. So even with all of the shear that's out there, there's still a possibility that something could at least try to get going in this particular area. So when we look back at the last 5 years, we've had 2 or 3 tropical storms just about each and every year. The only year is 2019, where we didn't have any activity during the month of June. And in 2022, not only did we have a tropical storm, but we also had Category 2 Hurricane Bonnie that fired up during the month of June. A little unusual to have hurricanes in June, but it can happen. And devastating hurricanes have hit the Louisiana Gulf Coast during the month of June. 1957, Hurricane Audrey was a Category 4 as it made its way onto the Cameron Parish coast on June the 27th. So it is possible to have hurricanes, and you can have very strong hurricanes as well, especially when you've got these warmer waters. And as I kind of hinted at earlier, a lot of our early season forecast, NOAA as well as Colorado State, all calling for well above normal numbers when it comes to named storms. But I just wanted to give you a reminder, this is the forecast that we had from early April. Colorado State University is going to have an update on their forecast on Tuesday. So hopefully that will be up and available for us before we do Let's Talk Tropics next Tuesday. So next Tuesday is when we'll get another update on that those early season forecasts. So right now you don't have anything to worry about for the course of the weekend, and I think early next week is fine as well. Again, as I've said over and over and over again, the best time to be prepared or to get prepared for a tropical storm or hurricane is when there are no systems out there at all. And there's plenty of supplies for everybody to go around for everyone. And you don't have to fight those crowds when everybody starts to get more into panic mode when tropical systems come in. So when it comes to social media, I always say think a few minutes and do your research before you share some of these graphics, especially some of these computer models. But at the same time, it makes me happy that people are sharing these things because it means that folks are getting ready for hurricane season and they are aware of the risk that's out there. So I hope everybody has a great weekend. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel and turn the notifications on too. And if you haven't visited the channel, you can watch other videos and other weather forecasts, including this morning's Acadiana Weather Today show, which has all of the details of your weekend forecast. So if you go to the page, you can click there, and I'd really appreciate if you would subscribe to the channel as well. I'm Meteorologist Dave Baker. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I will see you on Monday.